Well, hello, Facebook friends and family. Today is day 14 of 21. It is a topic that has been discussed for a long time with people not really understanding really what this topic is about. Hello, Connie. Thank you for popping in. Today's topic is on emotional intelligence or emotional smarts. You might have heard it as emotional EQ, the emotional quotient. And it's similar to the intelligence quotient. Hello, Ken. Thank you for popping in. Daisy May, so good to see you guys. Okay, so emotional smarts, emotional intelligence. It's similar to the intelligence quotient, the IQ that we've all heard about and probably were tested for when we were children, that kind of measured our intelligence. And a lot of us got tested when we were young and going into school because our parents and our teachers kind of wanted to have a handle on, how we would fare in school. Were we kind of in the normal range for our intelligence quotient, our IQ? Emotional quotient, the EQ, this emotional intelligence that has been around for quite a while now, is something that is obviously more recent. But what we're finding is that it's actually more important than your intelligence level, okay? And back in, I'm not sure when some of these studies were done, in more recent times, but Harvard and Stanford and Carnegie Foundation did some studies where they found, and this is crazy to me, 85 to 87% of our success, success. I'm dropping my S's today, of our success. Hi, Tammy. Welcome. Accounts for what we call soft skills, emotional intelligence, personal skills. Yet we only pay attention to about 10% of that. Okay, so what are these emotional skills? What are these soft skills? What are these personal skills? Well, Daniel Goleman is maybe famous to you. Maybe you know the name. He's an author who wrote a book back in 1995 on this very topic, emotional quotient, emotional intelligence. And since then, it has become a much more popular term, and people have been clamoring to understand what this emotional intelligence stuff means, right? Well, I can't explain it in 20 minutes in its entirety, but we are finding that it's more important than the IQ, like I said, and we're finding that companies in new hire, in hiring people, are paying more attention to kind of this emotional intelligence than this IQ situation, right? So, and a lot of companies are testing for emotional intelligence now. All right, so really, what does this mean? In a nutshell, and again, in the short little span of time that I'm doing here in these lives, emotional intelligence, think of this as kind of like it expresses and shows our people skills. It shows how our increases in communication or relationships, how we read other people, or how we kind of, I guess, think of it as more social adaptability. Okay, so what do I mean by social adaptability? Look, we all struggle with emotions. That's why I'm doing these 21 days as just these toe dips, right? We all struggle with emotions. We all have emotions. Sometimes certain emotions are going to get the better of us than other emotions, and some people will struggle more with this than that, right? Depending on what it is. Hello, Nicole. Lovely to see you too. Thank you for popping in, dear. But if we don't get a handle on these emotions, then we can often repeat patterns. We can, feel like we're being blamed or blame others. We can feel defensive. We can miscommunicate. We can just repeat these patterns over and over and over again, and then wonder why these things keep happening in our lives, whatever that situation is that has got you kind of stumped. Well, emotional skills is about being able to kind of understand. It's about being able to communicate a little more effectively. And I'm cautious to say a little more because that sounds like a judgment, right? And this isn't about judging ourselves or other people. This is about kind of understanding how to interact with people, how to have kind of the emotional bandwidth to not be reactionary, to not fly off the handle. So let's say you're in a new situation at a job, and I said that companies are kind of testing for this now. You're in a new situation for a job. They want to hire somebody that they know is going to potentially be able to get along with the coworkers. Now, what does that mean? Get along with the coworkers. Does that mean you're everybody's best friend? No. Does that mean you walk in the door and you're like, hi, John. Hi, Dave. Hi, Donna. Hi, Susie. Every morning? Of course not. But what these soft skills are, what these emotional skills are, is like if you were to walk in the door and you're going along through your day working, and a coworker is having a really bad day and being crabby, you're not going to necessarily take that personally and react back to it with the same kind of cranky or negative behavior. You'll be able to step back and go, wow, that person's having a crabby day. How can I help? So that's kind of an indication of emotional intelligence, okay, of how we can be intelligent to the emotions and the situations of others while not ourselves becoming triggered into our own triggered states of emotion, and then becoming reactionary and becoming challenged by others' kind of situations or emotional expressions. It's basically kind of it in a nutshell. It's much more involved than that. It's much deeper than that. But it's like, how then do we develop these skills? How do we, because we are all human and we do all have emotional issues and we all have triggers, how do we then become emotionally smart and emotionally intelligent to be able to pay attention to that? So it isn't always just about like compassion, or if you've heard the term empathy, and you yourself maybe even are empathic, where you can feel what other people feel. Let's say you're not empathic, but you have empathy, which is feeling with another person, versus sympathy, which is feeling for another person. There's a difference. Let's say you're not empathic, but you do have empathy, and you see that this coworker, this boss, this situation in your job is such where you could become reactionary. You could and are triggered. Emotional intelligence and the emotional quotient, that EQ level of skill, would then kind of kick in for you and say, wait a minute, this isn't my issue. That's that person's issue, whatever's happening for them. This is something I'm definitely triggered in, and I could become reactionary and I could want to fight back or be defensive. But instead, I will kind of sit back and I will say, how can I help in this situation? Now, it's not easy to do, but it is something that is important, as more and more companies are looking at emotional quotient, this emotional smarts, as being a good indicator of this, of taking a chance on this employee and hiring them, and hopefully having them be long-term in their organization. Emotional intelligence is also very important in your interpersonal relationships, whether it's with friends, whether it's with family, whether it's in romantic partnerships. It's very important, just as you're out and about in the world. If I walk into the store and I'm always kind of cranky, but I'm working to not kind of share my crankiness with other people, and somebody else is very cranky or rude, or the clerk, how many times have we all called a customer service hotline, right, for some information or to solve some problem, and we get a very rude or unhappy person on the other end. They're snippy, they're short, they're kind of assertive and aggressive, and they're kind of acting like we're bothering them by calling them to inquire about whatever this thing is we're calling about. And we hang up the phone and we're like, wow, oh, God, that person was rude. That was horrible. Or we don't deserve that. That's mean. Things like that. Well, in emotional intelligence, in this emotional skill set, it's one of those things where you work to not be triggered by another person's actions or behaviors. And because that's tough to do, simply because most of us have never been taught how to deal with our own emotions. So how am I going to learn to not be triggered by another person when I am triggered? If I don't understand my emotions, hey bro, my bro joined in. Hello, John, love ya. Thank you for popping in. How can I really understand another person's situation and where they're at if I'm struggling with my own emotions, right? If I lack some of that emotional skill set to be able to identify that within myself and within another. So that's one of the big reasons why I've been doing these 21 days, because I know as a therapist how important it is for people to begin to really understand what those emotions are that they're feeling, and then understand how to break them down and start to move through each piece. Because if we don't, we're going to just keep going along in life wondering why this is happening to me, or that situation keeps occurring, or that person keeps reacting the same way. And I'm going to continue feeling a certain way that I'm never really going to be able to feel like I'm managing through. So how can we, because this is just a small toe dip right into big topics every day, what can I do to begin to understand that? Well, I will, I wonder, I don't know if I can type this easily. Here is a website that you guys can go to. I will pin this at the top, where it's a free emotional quotient test, okay? Hopefully, oops, I forgot the period there. Did I only use one W? See, it's hard to do this and do that at the same time because I've never added this to the top before. So I think I have it in right. All right, and I will see if I know how to pin it. Right, so I don't know if anybody could, oh, pin comment. There, see, learning all this technology stuff, how cool, right? Okay, so I've pinned it at the top of the live here. This is a website that you can go to take a free emotional quotient online test. It's totally free. They don't ask for any credit card. They don't upsell you on anything and go, oh, do this free, and then, oh, you have to pay us to get more of your results. I checked it out. It's really good. You don't even have to put your email in or anything. It's just taking this test and then getting a score. So it's a start. It's a start to see where you fall on this emotional quotient kind of realm, right? Then, regardless of whether you do that test or not, another thing that you can do is it's important to write down all of the things that you believe are your strengths and those things that you believe are what we'd call your limitations or your weaknesses. Now, again, you know how big I am. For those of you who know me, you know how big I am on language. And I don't like those words, limitations, weaknesses, because in that inherently sounds judgmental. And I'm huge on language, but it's what we know. So what is important to do is on one sheet of paper on the front, write down all the things that you believe are your strengths, your positive things, the things you like about yourself, okay? And make it fun. Make it pretty when you do it, meaning write it on a piece of paper, not in a list, but just write, you know how you ever go to those like seminars or something and they have a whiteboard there and they just say, hey, throw out a bunch of words about some whatever they're talking about. And the facilitator just writes them on a board in any kind of way, this way, over here, writes it that way, whatever. Just write down on one side of the paper what you believe your strengths, your positive parts of you are, the things that you like, and draw little squigglies around it or squares or circles. Then on the flip side of the paper, write down the things that you would deem negative, limitations, weaknesses, things that you would like to improve. And again, do the same thing. Don't write them in a list fashion, just kind of, you know, write squiggles, lines around them, circles, whatever. You could do this even on two separate pieces of paper if you want. And I want you to look at them and I want you to compare them. And I'm not big on comparison, but now we're talking about our own ability to understand parts of ourselves, right? So look at the things you deem weaknesses or limitations. See if that list is longer than your positives. Look at what those things are that you feel you want and need to improve upon. You'll turn into a tech whiz. Yeah, right, Nicole? Somehow I doubt that, but that would be awesome if I could. So write those things down. Pardon me. And how do you feel? Like, look at those things that you perceive as negative or limiting or weaknesses that you want to improve on, and pay attention. Ask yourself, how do I feel about each one of these? Is this something that I really learned to be? Is it something I believe I have become? Like if it says, you're weak. Okay, am I really weak? Do I really believe and think I'm weak? And again, like I've said every day about a lot of these things, it's important to kind of pick it apart a little bit and ask the questions of like, is this true all the time? Because our minds have a tendency to catastrophize things. Because if we believe something, then we usually say language like it's all the time. Oh yeah, I'm a loser all the time. Well, why? Oh, well, look at this, and this. See, that proves I'm a loser. No, it doesn't. Have you ever had a time where you didn't feel like a loser? And this is why it's important to look at those things we deem positive and negative so that we can see the positives and understand that these negatives, these weaknesses, these limitations, these things you want to improve about yourself aren't happening all the time, even if sometimes you feel like they are. All right, so you ask that, and then, you know, you can take a look at writing down 2 things for each limitation or weakness. All right, let me take an example. I have felt in my own life, I have felt unworthy. Okay, so when I would write this down and I would look at these limitations and these things that I wanted to improve, one of the areas that I saw that kept coming up was that I felt unworthy. Now, we can fight about why I felt unworthy. That's not really the important piece here. The important piece is that I felt unworthy. Okay, how do I address that from this emotionally intelligent place, this emotional set of skills that are important to kind of carry me through life? Well, I looked at this unworthiness and said, is it always true? And the answer, of course, was no. There were times in my life where I absolutely felt tremendous worth and value. But there was also a lot of times where, even if it was quietly and subtly, and I didn't talk about it a lot, where I felt unworthy and I felt like I didn't have value. So then I looked at that and said, okay, well, I know it's not true 100% of the time. Now, what are 2 things that I could do to improve that unworthy feeling? And that's where sometimes then my positive list would help carry me from that feeling into a more positive place. So kind of look at then, you know, why it's important for you to improve that. Okay, well, why would it be important to improve worth? Well, because if I continue to feel unworthy, will I move forward in my life? Will I step into my full power and potential and possibility? Will I follow my dreams? Will I have good relationships? Questions like that, right? Like that, why is it important for me to improve this? Because sometimes we're tied to kind of the way we currently feel because we're so ingrained in that we don't know how to move out of it, right? So emotional intelligence is one of those things that is not something that you learn like overnight. It's not something that you can just like, I have a course on this. You could take the course and learn a tremendous amount and feel like you have many more treasures in your treasure chest or tools in your toolbox, however you want to phrase that, to help you manage through. But does that mean you're going to be this emotionally smart person overnight? No, because emotions as this adult is something that takes time to kind of work through. Because when we've spent a lifetime not really understanding these things and not ever really being taught how to move through it, it's not just this clear-cut formula that plug in A, plug in B, and you get C. You have to practice, and we'll be up against various situations and circumstances in our life from here until the day we draw our last breath, where we're going to be triggered and challenged and up against having to work through pieces. Does that make sense, I hope, to everybody? So go to that website, take that emotional intelligence test. I don't recall it being very long at all. It's short. Again, you don't even have to put your email in. They don't ask for anything. They don't bother you. Take it to get a flavor and an understanding of where you're at on this kind of emotional quotient realm. Know that there are ways to become more emotionally intelligent and emotionally smart so that you can effectively live through your life from an emotionally happier, more grounded space. I hope that helps. Like I said, I do have a course on this, so if you guys are interested in potentially becoming a beta tester with it, again, I have the course already, but I want to refine and tweak it and stay up with the times of people who continue to kind of, you know, need different things and are growing into things. So if you're interested in that, make sure you pop me a private message and just raise your hand and say, hey, I'd love to have more information about it when the time comes. If you guys are interested in the 21-day MP3 of all of these days with just the content and the solutions, again, make sure you raise your hand and let me know that you are interested in that, and I'll make sure that you get on that list. Share the love, spread this, spread the love, share the love, it's all the same. Share this out, this video out, and any of the videos that I've done so far, if you believe and think that they will be helpful to other people, because this is about emotional health and resiliency, and we're on a movement here to impact lives so that people don't have to continue feeling depressed and anxiety-ridden and sad and a lack of self-confidence and worthless and frustrated and confused and all those things that come with losing our childhood innocence and the kind of eyes of a child that we had when we were young, where everything was possible and everything was joyous. That's just not the way it is for us most of the time as adults anymore. So tomorrow I will be back on, I will be on earlier tomorrow. I will be back on tomorrow at 12. I have a function to go to in the afternoon, so I will be on tomorrow at 12, and we're going to start with some of my favorite topics. They're all my favorites, but tomorrow is the selves. Duh. Tomorrow we're going to start with the selves. For the next 3 days, we're going to be dealing with selves, like self-confidence, self-esteem, self-worth. And tomorrow is self-confidence. We'll begin with self-confidence tomorrow. So I love you all. Thank you so much for being here. Share the love out. If it's helpful to you or anybody else, pop me feedback. Connie, hello. Thank you. Love. You're not ever late. That's what we have replay for. Have a beautiful day that's filled emotionally with your awareness. I hope it's a joyous one. I'll see you guys tomorrow at 12 noon Central Time for self-confidence. Have an awesome day. Ciao for now. Where is my... I can't find my end. Where is the end button? It is not ending. Bye, guys.